Welcome to this next lecture in this series based upon my book, Artificial Intelligence, Neurodata and Society, Law at the Edge of Cognition. Chapter 5 turns from the state and the courtroom to corporate power. Its argument is that commercial NeuroAI does not merely produce more accurate recommendations. It enables platforms to construct dynamic environments that adapt to cognitive and affective states in pursuit of engagement, conversion, retention, and lifetime value. The user still experiences choice, but the architecture surrounding that choice learns when attention is weakening, when hesitation peaks, and which intervention is most likely to move conduct towards the platform's objective. The chapter calls this architectural manipulation. Unlike a static, dark pattern, it is continuous, personalized, and invisible as a distinct event. The architectural manipulation lies in the environment's capacity to keep changing. This lecture follows the direct and indirect pipelines that make such systems scalable, the large action models that orchestrate intervention, and the regulatory reorientation required when autonomy is eroded structurally rather than through a single deceptive act. Corporate authority hides inside the language of service improvement. This chapter identifies two routes into an ambient influence infrastructure. The direct route uses EEG, FNIRS, neural wristbands, and other interfaces to capture neural or neuromuscular signals. It offers rich, real-time feedback, but remains commercially constrained by hardware, discomfort, and public concern. The indirect route is more scalable. Controlled neurodata studies map pupil dilation, heart rate variability, skin conductance, gaze, scrolling, or cursor hesitation onto cognitive states. Platforms can then infer attention, frustration, arousal, or susceptibility through devices people already use. The brain supplies the calibration. The body and the behavior supply the everyday signal. Corporate objectives complete the architecture. A model does not infer for curiosity. It infers to increase dwell time, close a sale, prevent cancellation, maximize revenue. The environment becomes the intervention because every surface, delay, prompt, and sensory cue can be recalibrated around the model's estimate of the user. Scale transforms this from an unusual neurotechnology question into a mainstream platform governance problem affecting people who never encounter a brain-sensing device. Alex enters a metaverse shopping environment and experiences a seamless act of discovery. The platform reads gaze and a subtle neurosignature associated with emerging preference. Lighting warms, music changes, and a virtual assistant adopts a tone calculated to engender trust. Nothing is obviously false. No one commands Alex to buy. The system engineers the context within one outcome begins to feel natural. This is why this scenario is more demanding than a familiar deception case. Consumer law can identify a misleading claim, a hidden cost, or an obstructive cancellation screen. Architectural manipulation may contain none of those features. It acts through continuous microadjustment based on real-time cognitive and affective data. The user's sense of autonomy persists because the intervention arrives as relevance and convenience. The scenario makes visible the chapter's central political claim. When environments are responsive to subconscious clues, persuasion becomes an infrastructure rather than a message. The platform learns which world makes purchase feel self-authored. The proxy architecture on this slide explains how laboratory insight becomes platform scale. Inputs such as EEG, pulse, gaze, skin conductance, and cursor hesitation flow into hidden layers trained on correlations established against neural ground truth. The output is not a brain scan. It's an actionable category: engaged, distracted, confused, aroused, or price sensitive. This translation has enormous legal significance. If regulation protects only signals originating in neural tissue, firms can obtain functionally equivalent insight from the bodies and the interfaces behavioral shadows. The law protects the brain, while the market monetizes its echoes. The chapter therefore rejects data source formalism. What matters is the cognitive referent and the use to which the inference is put. A pupil or a scroll pattern becomes neurodata-like when a model uses it to infer mental state and adapt the environment. The regulatory object must be the pipeline of influence, not simply the origin of the input. The hidden layers also encode commercial judgments about which inferred states deserve exploitation, transforming classification into a program for differential treatment. Large action models add orchestration. Recommender systems rank. Reinforcement learning agents experiment with content and update a policy. A lamb can perceive a cognitive state, reason about vulnerability, and execute a sequence of interventions over time. Consider a user approaching cancellation. The model detects fatigue and frustration, slows the path to settings, surfaces emotionally resonant content, initiates a reassuring chatbot, and offers a discount at the point of maximum hesitation. None of these steps needs to be fixed in advance. The model selects and revises them in pursuit of retention. Temporal depth makes the architecture especially powerful. The objective may unfold across weeks, not one screen. Every user becomes the subject of a perpetual, individually generated campaign. The experience feels seamless because the model absorbs friction, because it becomes a conscious reason to leave. Personalization has become strategic behavioral management, and the platform's objective quietly supplies the normative direction. Goal-directed agency coordinates innocuous features into a manipulative system-level strategy. The regulatory evasion described here is structural rather than clandestine. A firm may accurately say that it does not process neurodata. It processes gaze, voice, heart rate, skin conductance, scrolling, and hesitation. Yet those signals become operational equivalents once models trained on neural correlations translates them into cognitive categories. Statutory definitions tied to the nervous system therefore protect the form while leaving the function untouched. The consent model offers little relief. Users depend upon platforms, face complex terms, and cannot understand the future inferential repertoire of models that continue to learn. Formal agreement legitimizes collection without securing cognitive autonomy. The chapter calls this ambient inference, influence achieved through ordinary devices, legally less sensitive proxies, and the architectures that remain below the visibility of conventional regulation. The signal may not be neural. The inference still concerns the mind, and the system still uses that inference to shape the conditions of choice. This is why disclosure of each individual signal or intervention cannot restore control. The user never receives a comprehensible account of the orchestration as a whole. The chapter's political economy therefore goes beyond individual vulnerability. Engagement, loyalty, and revenue turn cognitive insight into a corporate asset. Neuromarketing calibrates scalable proxies. Retail environments intervene at moments of hesitation. Immersive worlds neutralize boredom and make disengagement appear as a system error. The harm is not episodic. It resembles environmental degradation. Many small adjustments accumulate until the conditions supporting autonomous judgment have changed. This is why conventional consumer redress is inadequate. A person may identify no single misleading act, yet experience an environment designed to canalize conduct continuously. The chapter proposes functional regulation of manipulation, systemic transparency, and about optimization strategies, and a shift in a regulatory burden towards firms. Autonomy should be understood as a collective good dependent upon stable cognitive environments, not merely as an individual capacity to click no. What looks like assistance may function as control when the whole architecture serves an unchosen commercial objective. The political economy matters because optimization is not neutral. Its reward function repeatedly resolves ambiguity in favor of the firm's engagement and revenue interests. I guess you could say that the purpose of Chapter 5 was to give us a vocabulary for a form of power that dark pattern doctrine alone cannot capture. Architectural manipulation is ambient, adaptive, and cumulative. The brain provides calibration, the body and behavior provide scalable proxies, and the platform provides the orchestration. The consumer is not just simply targeted with a message. The consumer's cognitive environment becomes a site of optimization. Regulation must therefore move beyond data categories, notice, and isolated deception. It must ask what objective the system pursues, which vulnerabilities it infers, how feedback loops alter the decision environment, and whether the architecture preserves meaningful opportunities for reflection and exit. The final issue is constitutional as much as it is commercial. Can autonomy remain a substantive principle when informational environments are continuously tuned to pre-conscious susceptibility? Don't forget to check out the next video in this series where we turn to Chapter 6, Rewiring Rights, and examine the future of NeuroRights. Chapter 5 therefore asks regulation to protect the ecology of choice, not merely to remove a misleading screen after the architecture has already shaped the decision.